Hello, Flosstube. Today is Friday, July 3rd, because Saturday, tomorrow, is the 4th of July. For those of you in the U.S., of course, we'll be celebrating Independence Day. And so I'm doing this video on Friday instead of waiting till Saturday because we're doing some festivities on Saturday also. We are, during the day at noon, we're having a little get together at my younger sister's house. So we're barbecuing and cooking the hamburgers and hot dogs and have a bunch of snack things planned, and we're gonna play some games and stuff like that. So our family's getting together on Saturday, and so I didn't want to have to. We wanted to be home in the evening because of all the fireworks. We didn't want the dogs freaking out, so we're having our party during the day. So we filmed our Three Sisters video this morning, Friday morning, and so I thought I'd go ahead and do my uh, update because I had my stuff out already, and because that way I don't have to interrupt whatever we're doing on Saturday to film a video. Anyway, so you'll get it a little bit early, so you can go do whatever festivities you have planned for Saturday. um, um, a little bit of a sort of life update. My sister and I have been going to, I don't know if I mentioned it on this channel, but we've been going to two stitching groups that meet on one on Thursday and one on Friday with some of the women in this community. Um, the the library was the one we heard about first that has I think it's called Yarn Crafters or something like that. Basically, any craft you do with with yarn or thread or whatever. So there are people there that have knitting and crochet and embroidery and cross stitch. Um, so we went to check it out a couple weeks ago, and it was a very nice group of ladies. But some of them live in this neighborhood also, and they have a group called uh, Copper Basin Crafters, I think, or something. That it's an HOA community here in just not far from the library. It's in that same neck of the woods. But so there's some overlap. Some of the women go to both, or whatever. And since it's also pretty nearby, we decided to check that out as well. So it's fun. We're going to both groups, and it's just something to get out of the house and talk to people and do crafting and all that. So it's fun. But this week we didn't go to either group. The Yarn Crafters group was not meeting on Friday because of 4th of July. The library's going to be closed and all that. And we were going to go to the Thursday group, but then other things happened. Um, so it's kind of a long story, but I'm going to go ahead and tell it because, ordinarily my sister and I are both on assistance on Medicare. She because she's older and retired, and me because I've been on disability since my brain surgery. So anyway, we get paid like all Social Security checks, whatever. We get paid on the 3rd of the month. But this month, because the 3rd is on a Friday, which is a government holiday, we get paid on the 2nd. Okay, great. But the grocery store has Senior Day, which we always go to. We do basically a good monthly shop on the first Wednesday of the month because it's Senior Day, and we get a fairly good set of discounts, whatever. And so we try to be as clever as possible with our coupons and our Senior Day and this and the other. But sometimes, as in this month, the first Wednesday falls before our paychecks, right? So we had been sort of scrounging and thinking, okay, well, it's because it's basically the end of the month, right? So all the bills have been paid and this and that, and so it's setting aside money for grocery shopping because of the mistiming of everything. But anyway, so we decided, okay, Wednesday we can get various things because of the discounts, and then Thursday when we actually get paid, we can go back and get whatever little extras we know that we think. So we were thinking, okay, we don't need to get this today. That can wait till Thursday, and we'll get all these things on Wednesday. So we did that. We got certain things on Wednesday, but then so we took them home and brought them inside, and then um, I usually have one of those electric carts, and then Eve is pushing a regular cart. Um, but the problem is that the regular cart gets pretty heavy. We had bought some sodas because we decided, okay, we can afford that because that's a necessity. But anyway, so the cart. But anyway, the cart gets pretty heavy, and this particular cart, kept wanting to pull to one direction or this, so she's fighting with the cart the whole time. But anyway, so we had gotten home and unloaded the groceries and put everything away, and then like that afternoon, she was having kind of like a chest pain, and it kept persisting, and we thought, is this a heart thing, you know? And fortunately, my nephew was home, and so he was able to. We drove to the hospital because I asked Eve, do you want me to go with you? Because he was going to take her to the ER. But I thought, it's nice to have another female, for any female issues or whatever. Um, uh, so we all went, and then after they sort of assessed her, because it's it's good. A good thing, but when you go to the ER and you have chest pains or whatever, they'll say, chest pains in the lobby, and they, will take you back a little more quickly. But anyway, so once we figured out that she was, sent to triage, and they determined that, she's not having a heart attack, and so, but they still wanted, of course, to do various tests and stuff, and so. Robert already had plans for the evening, so we went ahead and he went ahead and let him go, and we were thinking, we'll be here a little while until they'll run some tests, and if it's nothing serious, we'll just take an Uber home and whatever, right? Because we weren't far from home. The hospital is relatively close to our home, but it just all the things, the ER things, it just takes forever. So they did X-rays and heart enzymes and all kinds of things, and we were there for hours. We were there from maybe 3 in the afternoon till I think we got home just before 11, after 11 sometime. We were there all day long. Um, so and I took some cross stitching with me, but I did it for a while. But then after a while, I was just I forgot to take scissors with me, and so I just got kind of tired anyway, and I was freezing. It was freezing in there. But so we were there for so long, I had to stop for a while. But so, and then we were there so long that Robert was able to come back and, came back to pick us up, so we didn't have to take an Uber after all. But, but yeah, it was an exhausting day. For basically, they were afraid at one point that maybe she had a blood clot or something, so they did more X-rays about that, and fortunately they ruled that out. So they ruled out anything serious, but she does have to. They wanted to follow up, of course, with a cardiologist, and just because I guess some things were a little questionable, and but there was nothing immediate, and nothing was dangerous or anything like that going on. So they went ahead and cleared her, but she's got to follow up with a cardiologist. So anyway. So that was how we spent Wednesday night. And then, so because of that, we said, well, wanted to get these other things on Thursday that we had put off. And there were, some things that were necessary, like paper towels, and things like we had just thought, that can wait till, Thursday. When we get paid, we can get these extras. And so Eve was looking at the thing and said, we could get I think there was some kind of offer about if you could spend over $50, you could get delivery. And so we thought, oh well, that sounds good. But then for some reason there was some, I don't know if it's this particular store or something, but they wouldn't. She wasn't able to choose delivery. So so we did pickup, right? So that she said, I can drive to the store. We can have them, bring the groceries out, and that way, we'd have to go in and shop at the store. But they could, put the groceries in the car, and then Robert had taken some days off because of Eve's condition, so he was going to be home to help us bring the groceries in, and we weren't really getting that much. And so Thursday we did the pickup thing. So we went back to the store to pick up our order, and there was a little bit of confusion because I had some paper coupons that we were going to use, on Thursday, and with a pickup we could still use them to pay, but there was some confusion about the one that the guy said, this isn't working, this one isn't working, and I don't see it in the back. And so we were like, it was on the order, so they were able to rectify that. There were some frozen items that weren't, I guess they didn't get them from the freezer section or whatever. Um, but so we thought everything was fine. So we brought the groceries in and we put them away. And Eve was going through later on, I guess late that night, and just going through and reconciling everything. And she asked me, "Did you unpack peaches that she had put on the order?" And I'm like, "No." And we realized the paper towels we had bought were not on that order. And so, she went through and checked everything. So that was the paper towels and some peaches. She had bought uh, peaches there from the store, and they just left those off the order because we were so concerned about the frozen items. We didn't look, just make sure that everything was there. So we went back again today to get those items, and we thought realized that we needed some, like jet dry stuff for the dishwasher, because our dishwasher, if it's out of the rinse agent, will scream at you. And I was trying to see if there's some way to override, like this, because like if I didn't want to buy rinse agent, you know, I ought to be able to tell it, I don't have rinse agent, I don't want rinse agent, just wash the dishes. But if there is a way to override it, I don't know. When we got this house, it had a fancy new refrigerator and a fancy new dishwasher, although it's small, and it had a not new, I think, but fancy stove, um, but no like owner's manuals for it. I don't know if they even make owner's manuals nowadays because everything's online. And so for the dishwasher, I don't know. I don't know all the details of it, but like starting it's fairly simple and fairly obvious, and it has a few little uh, extras on there, I guess, but it doesn't have anything about like overriding the rinse agent, or if it does, I don't know what it is. But anyway, so we that was another thing we bought today. So it was like 3 trips later to the grocery store. I think we have everything. Anyway, so it's been a long weekend already. But so anyway, so now on to cross stitch because that's what this channel is about, not about domestic issues. So last week I was finishing up my WIPGO stuff for June. I had already done my whips, and I talked about my new starts. So I had done most of my one of my new starts, Stitchy Prose Night Owl, and this was part of the Night Garden palette series for Cross Stitch the Rainbow from last year's market. It was this, so this little owl was part of them, and I talked about how instead of stitching it on a off-white or whatever, this was stitched on this Belfast linen in Celestine from Fiber on a Whim. But so I didn't use that, of course. I used fabric that I dyed myself. This is 28 count. No, yeah, I think it's 28 count. Um, Lugana, I think. No, even weave. Um, But so the owl is going to have a blue face because it's not stitched in the model. It's just the color of the fabric. But I didn't want a blue faced owl, so I stitched parchment on here. But otherwise, it's the Night Garden palette. It's a Threadworks group. So I finished it. I finished all the stitching and did the owl's face. And so there, his beak still doesn't show up very well, but it's there. It's, you know, like I said, it's this uh, what is it? I forget what the name of the color is. It's one of the Threadworks Night Garden palettes. Oops, it's the right one. Where does it go? Coffee and cream. And in the model, it's on the yellow side. It shows up pretty well on that thing, in that color. But my coffee and cream skein is a little more on the beige side and not quite as yellow. And I was concerned that it really wouldn't show up well on off-white, you know, kind of colored fabric. Um, that's one reason why I went ahead, and I wanted something a little darker, and I could have gone a little darker blue, but I was concerned that the blue wouldn't show up. Well, it's Concord Grape is the purplish color, this darker color here. I was concerned that if I went, you know, like a night garden kind of color, that the blue wouldn't show up. And so anyway, so the coffee and cream color is here on this branch, and the front of the owl here, and on this beak. But anyway, so I did the face with parchment just to make it stand up and make it look white like an owl. But that's done. So that was one of my new starts for WIPGO. And my other WIPGO new start was Merry and Bright Mice by Primrose Cottage. So it's a little easier to see this way. Those two little mice decorating a Christmas tree. There's snow, there's packages, there's cardinals. And this little mouse here, the lower mouse, he's got his hands up holding the upper mouse, you know, helping it, holding it on his head, right? And there's this little sweater. And it's the same green that's used like with the trees, you know, and all that. So this is all, they're all Weeks Dye Works colors except for the black and white. There's black used just a little bit, like for the cardinals faces, and for the like long stitched the hangers for the baubles, and also just for the eyes of the mice. But it's mostly Weeks Dye Works colors. Well, the problem was the green that's called for on this is a lily pad, which on the model looks, you know, nice and green, Christmassy green. But my skein, it looks greenish here, but it's a little bit on the muddy side, on the darker side. And so so it didn't show up well. Especially next to this, the body color of this mouse under here, it's a little hard to see the green of his arm, but you know, not quite as hard. But with that lily pad, when I started stitching the sweater on this mouse, and you couldn't see the arm at all. It was almost the same color as the rest of his body. And it didn't look really green, you know, not a pretty Christmassy green. So since I had just done the night owl, I had this thread, and I had this green, the Parrot Bay green it's a Threadworks color of the Night Garden palette. So I went ahead and used that instead, and you know, for his sweater and the tree. And it all just looks really great. The green looks great. And it's also in the center of some of these baubles here, and some of the presents. So the green looks a lot better. You know, it's a lot more green, more visible. This is 28 count Lugana that I dyed myself. It's blue. I think everything I stitched this week has been on blue lately. So anyway, so that is the two new starts for June. They finished them, and I was stitching until the wee hours of the night because I wanted to get it finished by the end of June, so that on the 1st, I, of course, have my new WIPGO stuff for July that I haven't started yet. I talked about those last week, I think. But I also have the cross stitch camp piece for July, and the challenge for July was to stitch something patriotic, either for the U.S. 250th semi-quincentennial. So something red, white, and blue, or if you're in another country, something that like the colors of your flag, that contains the colors of your flag or whatever. So I chose Freedom Flock. This is by Plum Street Samplers, and it's one of the stacked animals series that she has. There's a baby eaglet up here, and another eagle here, and this big eagle here, and of course some little sort of quilty things, and there's some leaves down here at the bottom. So this is the Plum Street Samplers pattern, and this uses Weeks Dye Works, what do you call it, Classic Color Works, and DMC colors all in here. And this model, you kind of have a little trouble seeing the eaglet, the baby eagle here. You can kind of, probably in person, you can see it easier, but it's on this sort of, antique-y looking fabric. It's called Hazelwood by Fiber on a Whim, and it's 32 count in this model, and it's stitched 1/2, right? So there's that. But, of course, I chose a blue. It seems to be a theme, but this is from the grab bag that we got, several weeks ago. But this is 36 count, even weave. I think it's 36 count. I'm assuming it's 36 count. So I'm stitching it 1/2, except that the eaglet's face, around his face, is 1/1. That's and his beak is back stitched with this mascara color, and his eye. And then there's the eye of this eagle. I haven't put his beak on there yet, so he's got a. But and I don't know for sure that this is mascara, because I had like a couple of sharp pieces, and it might be 310. That was in my little zippy bag there, and I don't know that it's mascara because but it's black, And so, so I did stitch this. It's 1/1, and there's like a sort of you can't really tell very well on here, but this light color of the eaglet's wings is kind of a off-white grayish color, like a very light gray, basically. And that's kind of around his face, and then this little eye and everything is 1/1. And then there's another color on either side of the eagle's, this big eagle's eye. The center is black, and then there's two other squares on either side of the eye. Because how eagles have that sort of shaded eyeball eye look, so that they can see, I think, see more clearly. But anyway, so I started to do these little sort of quilt star designs. I did the outside. I haven't done the inside yet. There's like parchment and some other off-white colors around the center there. But so I did some of the stitching, and I stitched the number 1776. It's the same blue as this. I was a little concerned that would show up. It's Weeks Dye Works Chesapeake, and I was a little concerned that it might not show up well on this blue. But I think the white shows up better on this. And there's some little, like, four or five, 4 stitches with a center stitch all over the pattern, here and there on the pattern, like this little gap. I think there's one right up here in the corner. That really almost you can't really see well on this model. Maybe if you saw it in person, you could see them better, but you can't even really see them on this model. Just in the picture, so I'm hoping that against this blue fabric they'll show up better, like this white of these eagles. So this is the middle eagle. I just did that today, his body today. But so yeah, it's coming along pretty well, and this is just all all the bigger it is. It's I think 51. Yeah, 57 by 91 is the size on there. So it's not very big. It's like, three, almost not quite 4 inches across here. Um, so yeah, um, and so one over two I said on this color. So I just did a little bit of the frame so I could start, the top here, and then I'll work my way down and do more of the frame is the frame thing is in mascara, and then I want to do the eagles little by little as I go down, and yeah, so that's coming along, and so I'm figuring I'll be able to finish it by before the end of this month, just pretty quickly I hope, um, and then I can do all my other whip stuff, but that hopefully will go pretty quickly, and yeah. So that's really all I have for this week. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I haven't done any of my WIPGO stuff yet, just the cross stitch camp piece for now. And I'll get to the rest of it when I get to it. So until next week, I hope you have a happy and safe 4th of July. It's going to be fairly hot here. Like, I think yesterday was 110. It's been 110, 113, whatever, out here in Arizona. And I was kind of laughing about, some of the, I was reading about some of the stuff about how, they have a sort of a heat plume going on in the northeast. And so it's very hot and humid in those areas. And so yeah, with the heat index and all that, it's going to be like 110 degrees out there with the heat and humidity. And so some cities, I guess, are choosing to cancel their 4th of July plans of like they have parades and stuff like that. But because of the extreme heat, they're canceling their parades and stuff. I don't know what all is going on here in the Phoenix area. I haven't really paid it much attention because we have plans of our own. We're plans of our own. We're not planning on going out and doing any of those um, you know community events right now. When I was in Little Rock, I used to do, and I think I shared on Facebook one of my memory shots, came up with my memories. Um, we did two things that, outside of the season. One was Memorial Day weekend, um, Riverfest is what it was called. And it was down by the river, downtown. And they had, like, Riverfest had, like, various booths and stuff and concerts, and then the symphony would play like at the end of Riverfest. At first we were the last one to play on Memorial Day weekend. There were like several things that several concerts that happened before us, and then we would be the last ones to play, and then there would be fireworks. And because I lived downtown, a lot of times I just walked from my apartment to the downtown, because I was like, it was like 7 blocks my first apartment, and about 9 blocks from my second apartment. Um, and sometimes I would drive in my other apartment. I would drive to the downtown branch of the library. It had kind of a big parking lot, so if I was lucky, if I went early enough, I could get a parking space there. And um, and then I would walk, a couple blocks to Riverfest. But anyway, so we did Memorial Day weekend, and then on the 4th of July, it was just us, and we would go and play. Well, I think there was some group that played before us, but we would play in the evening, and as it got dark, and the last thing we did was always the 1812 overture, and then there would be cannons and stuff like that, and then they would do the big fireworks show from there was a bridge just down the river from where we played. So usually for 4th of July, I would stay and watch the fireworks display there, or I would see it as I walked home. Um, but uh, uh, but anyway, so it was kind of fun because I had to be down there anyway. So, and there were the fireworks and all that, so that was fun. But anyway, so I think the last that was the last thing I did was 4th of July. 2015, because I had retired from the symphony that at the end of that season, May of 2015, and so the last thing I did was the Fourth of July concert that July, and then I moved out here that October. So yeah, so that was one of the last things I did there. Um, but anyway, so we're not doing any of the big display things. And I don't know what they're planning out here in uh, Santan Valley, Queen Creek, whatever. Um, I haven't seen or read anything because I'm not really plugged into what's going on down here yet. Um, but but we're just hoping to keep the dogs calm and out of it, because I know there's going to be fireworks and whatever. Um, but so yeah, so like I said, that's why we're doing our little get together thing during the day, and then we can be home in the evening when all the people are setting up fireworks or whatever. Um, so the dogs can we can be here to calm the dogs. Anyway, so I've been blabbering on for longer than I've intended to. Um, so I will see you again next week. And I'm going to be, I haven't signed up yet, but I'm going to sign up for Midsummer Stitch, um, which is going to be the 18th and 19th of this month. And I have the link to I think it's jingleball.com. You have to go to get to get tickets and all. But lindystitches.com also has a link to jingleball.net, I think it is, to buy tickets for Midsummer Stitch. And I think they're like something like $15 plus tax or whatever like that. So it's really an economical way to go and stitch with other people. You can online on your computer or whatever, and so you can participate as much or as little as possible. There's stitching tables, so you can get together with however many people and sit and talk and all that. And there's also there's a few classes which are extra, but you could sign up for one of the classes. And then there's a shopping hall. You can go and shop for patterns and things like that. And there's some exclusives um, and freebies and things like that. And then also they have like a meet and greet thing a lot of times with the designers that they have visiting, and you can meet with them and or get to hear their story, ask questions, things like that. So it's fun. It's a fun way to an economical way to go to basically a stitching retreat without having to pay for travel and hotel and food and all that stuff that you know. Um, so anyway, it's very convenient for people really all over the world to go to this. Anyway, so I'm going to be doing that. Had been putting it off because of my the paycheck issues. I had been putting it off so that I can feel free about it, signing up for it. Um, yeah. So anyway, yeah, feel free to do that as well. Tickets will be available for the just actual general admission tickets up until the day of. I guess you can buy your tickets anytime between now and the 18th. Um, anyway, so if you're doing Midsummer Stitch, I may see you there. Um, but there's another week I think between now and then. So I will see you then. And until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.